What's up, guys? Here we are live, Monster Motivator TV number 27, and we are in beautiful downtown Carlsbad Village. And the stories that you're going to hear today, you know, I'm a big believer in knowledge and wisdom are they're on two different playing fields, right? Knowledge is really unorganized information. Wisdom comes from real life experience by being there, and you can't acquire real wisdom in any classroom around the world, in any book. You might be able to get information from a book, but it's not going to give you that wisdom. And where you acquire real wisdom is from people that have been there and done it. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Chuck Hahn and have him. We're gonna do what we always do, right? Where you started, Chuck, where you're at today, and where you see yourself going. And I know that's a big order. But we're going to just break it down into little chunks, right? We're going to take little bites of this.
It's a huge one.
But that's good. We're going to take little bites of this. So, Chuck, where are you originally from?
Wilmington, Delaware, not far from you.
That's right. East Coast in the house.
Boy.
Okay. All right.
I was a farm boy in Hockessin, Delaware.
Okay.
I grew up on a farm.
Okay, so you were born and raised?
Yeah, I was born and I was raised.
So, how long were you in Delaware?
I was in Delaware until I was about 16 years old. 16? And then I went to a military school.
Oh, yeah. Man, they weren't playing.
They weren't. My parents were really good people. They really liked me. But I went to military school because they wanted me to turn out really well.
Sure.
And I was turning away a little bit in school, as a lot of young kids do.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, inside I didn't really want to turn away.
Right.
They got me in military school, and I hated the first year, but after that I did real well. And so I graduated and then went to college.
Okay.
After that.
So what was that culture shock like? What did you have to, like your first year, what were you going through? Like how did you figure out how to cope or figure this out? Because, all of a sudden you're 16, right? Yeah. And you're in that military school.
Yeah. I guess I had a good attitude about life when I was young.
Even when
I was
Where
young.
do you think you got that?
I got it from my dad.
You did?
No question. My mother was a Latin, French, and English teacher.
Okay.
And my dad was a salesman for the Hoover Company. They make vacuum cleaners, folks. and they were really good people, nice people. Mm-hmm. And my dad just was pleasant all his life. And he helped me that way, I think, a great deal.
So he helped that, he kind of built that foundation.
Yeah. The only problem I had as a young guy on a farm is every once in a while, I would get really weak. And really weak. Mm-hmm. And my mom and dad, this was the early 1950s. They didn't know about hypoglycemia and things like that. So they gave me some food, and I'd come out okay.
Yeah. Just feed them.
Yeah.
Just feed them.
Just feed them. That was the deal.
I'll tell you what, I grew up that way. That was the old Italian. If there's any problems, just feed them. Just feed them. So now after your first year, you just figured out how you kind of fit in. You felt like a little bit more comfortable.
Okay. Yeah. I ended up after 4 years as a captain.
Okay.
And giving one of the graduation speeches. But I wasn't a great student.
Right. Oh, man.
I wasn't a great student at the time because I didn't know how to concentrate, and I wasn't disciplined. Now, since then, because I've had so many medical challenges, I've learned discipline. Right. And that's helped my whole life. But I didn't have much discipline then.
Well, let me ask you this, though, Chuck, because, my story is, left back in the second grade, diagnosed with ADD, said I had a learning disorder, and I never even graduated high school. And see, it was so hard for me to learn in that classroom environment. I wanted to be outside, playing sports, doing things that were physical, right? Releasing the endorphins, but also that's where my comfort zone was. Let me ask you this, I'm curious.
Okay.
How much of that do you think in you, because you can talk about yourself, how much in that in you was lack of the inability for them to dig into your creativity? Meaning, boredom.
I don't know if I was a bored kid. My mom and dad
even in class?
Yeah, even in class.
Okay.
I would listen and assimilate about half of it.
Okay.
And then I'd go out and I'd forget everything. But I had to go to study hall every night, so then I had to relearn it.
Okay.
And I was kind of semi-disciplined, I guess, after a couple of years of military school.
Right.
That's about as good as I could say with that one.
Yeah, because I think I believe myself is a lot of it had to do with it just didn't keep my attention.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I did leave school.
Yeah.
You know, I was not the greatest day in the world by any means, but I had somebody ask me on a podcast not long ago. It was the first time that someone asked me this, so I had to think about it, right?
Yeah.
But it was so neat. They said, "How did you feel when you literally just left high school, right? You just walked out." I said, "You know, I never thought of that." And I said, "But thinking back, it was a complete weight lifted off my shoulders."
Really?
Yes, I felt
Really?
like now, and it took me a long time to get going as an entrepreneur. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like I left high school and I started a business. I mean, you know,
Sure.
found myself sitting in a jail cell at 19, looking at major. Yeah. So, but the weight was lifted off because if I had to kind of describe it, I felt like now it's game time. You know, life. Now it's game time, and I definitely could not define it then.
Hey, you were
Believe me.
growing up really fast.
Yeah.
My grow up was much more slow
Okay.
than yours.
Yeah,
Much
on the farm and
Yeah, it was I graduated from high school.
okay,
I was able to get into a college,
okay,
and I went to college, and I was the same way for the first couple of years there. I didn't do much,
yeah,
and I decided to major in music
okay,
in college, and I became a trumpet player. My mom had given me a trumpet on the farm, I used to play it, you know,
Yeah,
did really try. So I ended up majoring in music,
oh,
and that's where I got disciplined a little bit, because
Right.
you really have to practice, and you really have to.
but you had that passion for it though.
Yeah, I did.
See,
Yeah.
that's where I think
Yeah.
you know, discipline. Look, we all need that, right?
Yeah.
But when you can find that passion, you don't feel like it's so much discipline because you have so much love for it.
Yeah, you
Not
want to
that
do it.
it's all hard work,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Long hours.
Yeah.
But man, when you can dial into that, I think that's what makes a big difference. So now, how long were you in college?
I did a full 4 years.
4 years.
I
Right.
graduated, and then 2 weeks later, I was drafted to go to Vietnam.
Now,
At the
what
time-
college you go to?
Piedmont College.
Okay, yeah, I'm
Okay.
familiar.
Part of the University of Georgia system
Yeah.
now. I was drafted 2 weeks later. I had just gotten married,
Okay,
okay? And I got drafted and didn't know what to do. I wanted to have fun after getting out of college.
Sure.
I didn't want to
You're a
go to
kid.
Vietnam.
right? Yeah,
They
yeah.
had just finished the Tet Offensive, you know?
Right.
It was 1969, or 69.
69.
Yeah, and they just finished the Tet Offensive, and all I could think of was, what do I do? And so what I decided to do, though, Dave,
But
is take the officer candidate test. And the reason why is all my friends said, look, you graduated from college.
Mhm.
You're not dumb. Maybe you should go in as a higher level as you can.
okay.
So I took the officer candidate test.
Oh.
Somehow I passed it.
Wow.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but the combat life expectancy rate for a second lieutenant in Vietnam was 16 minutes. No wonder
Really?
they wanted me, folks. No wonder they
Wow.
wanted me. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I went through the whole deal. I went to basic training and advanced training and ended up in the engineer officer candidate school
Yeah.
and got commissioned as a military police officer.
So in '69, how old were you?
Young.
What,
Let's see. 78, 20, I was 21 and a half.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
21.
Yeah. You were just a kid.
Yeah, I was. And I didn't know much, but I went through all these schools and I learned a lot real fast.
Okay.
I learned a lot fast.
Now, how long were you in Vietnam?
I didn't go to Vietnam.
Oh.
They commissioned me in military police.
Okay.
I know. They commissioned me in military police. And I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia for basic school.
Okay.
And then I was transferred to the Presidio of San Francisco, which is the best assignment on
Wow.
earth, to
Wow.
be with a battalion of military police people. As a second lieutenant, I went there and did my deal. And they made me a company commander after about a year in charge of all the military police on this base. The
Yeah.
Presidio was a high-ranking base.
Okay.
You know, it was one where all the big dignitaries
Yeah.
come and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they made me a company commander, and then I got orders to Vietnam, to answer your question.
Oh.
So I had a first sergeant who was a really good guy. He said, look, Lieutenant, I was still a lieutenant. He said, look, Lieutenant, you need to go to airborne school.
Wow.
And he said, do it en route. You get 3 more weeks in the United States before you go to Vietnam. And he said, I really think it'll help you. So my first thought was, I ain't jumping out of airplanes, man.
Right?
What's the deal?
This is a perfectly good airplane.
Yeah, really. But I decided to apply, and they accepted me, Dave. They accepted me. And so that's twice I got accepted.
Right? There you
Once
go.
yeah.
You're popular.
Yeah, real popular. And so I ended up going down there.
Wow.
And if you want me to finish the story, I can do it.
Well, but let me ask you this.
Okay.
He recommended you go in, right?
Yeah.
Because he thought he'd do you well.
Yeah.
And what did you get out of it?
I ended up getting a lot more than I ever thought I would.
So you were surprised?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
shocked. I was shocked, and because I had a great fear of jumping out of an airplane.
Right.
I went through the school,
Okay.
did my first jump, I made it through, and it was what they call a C-119 boxcar I had to jump out of.
Okay.
I was scared to death when I got on this thing, and you hook up and you turn forward, check your guy in front of you, you know, and all this, and then you jump from out the sides.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to jump now. I was a second lieutenant. I had a whole bunch of privates in front of me.
Yeah.
And other guys. I was the first lieutenant, actually. And so I made my first jump, and that was great. And I could, new feeling in life, man.
Yeah.
Unless you've done it, you can't really explain it. My second jump, though, I broke my thumb when I landed. And they made me a holdover. And this changed my life.
This moved you in. But let's go back.
Okay.
So your first jump,
Yeah.
right? And they got you training, and you're getting prepared, right?
Yeah.
But how were you able to break through that fear barrier? I'm the fear barrier guy, so this is perfect.
You know the deal.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Tell us how you did it.
Okay, well, the day before we jumped for real,
Right.
they took us to what they call the 250-foot tower, which is still there at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
And they have a real parachute that goes up with you. They lift you, put you in hook you up in a real parachute, and the parachute is in a stand.
Okay.
And it goes up,
Mhm.
and then they let you go. And that was really my first jump.
So like the bottom drops out.
Yeah, and you parachute down in a real chute.
Okay.
So you get 250 feet.
Okay.
Plus, you have to do what they call parachute landing fall, and you got to do that, right?
Yeah.
You know. But
Before they'll even
yeah,
bring you up in the plane.
yeah. Before you go up in
Okay.
the plane, the
How
next
much
thing,
did that help you?
a lot.
It did.
It took away a lot of the fear.
Okay.
You know, I was already scared to death.
Yeah, the anxiety.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I later on I jumped with the Germans. I'll tell you about that.
Okay.
But I got on this airplane, the real deal. I was scared to death, but I did everything I was trained to do.
Okay.
I disciplined myself, and that helped me a great deal. And so I did it. Second jump, broke my thumb, man.
Yeah. But and then by breaking your thumb, because you were ready to go to Vietnam.
I was.
Right,
I
that
was
was
on
your
my
orders?
route. En route, yeah.
Okay, so you broke your thumb. Now what?
Well, after I broke my thumb, they made me what they call a holdover.
Right.
And to heal, I was in a cast for quite a while and all that. And during that period of time, my orders changed. So I was en route to Vietnam, and all of a sudden they reassigned me to become a company commander
Okay.
in Germany,
Right.
which really gave me some relief because I did not want to go to Vietnam at the time. I mean, I would have because
No, I know.
I'm a patriot.
No, of course.
But
they're your orders.
yeah, those were my orders. But they changed, and so that helped me a great deal. I ended up finishing my jumps.
Okay.
And putting my new wings on and flying to Stuttgart, Germany.
Really?
Yeah. And
Okay.
They assigned me as a company commander over 5 separate areas of Germany,
Okay.
and it was a military police assignment, and I really had a lot that I had to do. It was a very, very stressful job, and the reason why I'm saying this is because every once in a while I'd get really weak, and I knew to eat something.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't know what that was. I
Sure.
had no clue.
Sure.
And so I was a company commander there for 2 years in charge of millions of dollars worth of equipment, 200 people, tons of vehicles. I was only in my early 20s,
Right.
26, 25, mid-20s anyway. And so that was a big assignment for me. And I had to learn a lot fast.
Yeah.
And there was always a threat from at the time the Great Wall was up, you know,
Yeah.
the Europe
Yeah.
Wall there, separating the east
So
and the west.
what kind of what kind of skills did you acquire when taking all that kind of responsibility? Because I talk a lot about fear barriers, right?
Yeah.
And different types of fear.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have fear of success and they don't realize it. And how I define that is really who's the person you need to become. What are your new responsibilities? So all of a sudden, right? You're being asked to become a person that you weren't before in order
That's true.
to meet that head on. Would
Yeah.
that be accurate?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
In all honesty,
Yeah.
and in retrospect,
Yeah.
my biggest fear, Dave, was that my sergeants, the people under me, who were more experienced and older,
Right.
wouldn't have enough respect for me.
Right.
And that was inside.
That was
It
a
wasn't an outside
self-image.
fear. Yeah.
That was a self-image thing, right?
Truly
Because
was.
you weren't sold on yourself
Yeah.
yet. right, to that level.
That's
and
really
that's
true.
only natural.
Yeah.
That's only natural because you're looking at those guys thinking, man, you know. So how did you get past that? How did you beat that?
I had a really good first sergeant,
Okay.
lead sergeant. He really helped me. He would, I would ask him questions and he'd give me answers. How I really got over it, I listened to other people.
Okay.
I listened to what they told me.
Okay.
And I did what they told me most of the time because these guys knew.
Yeah.
And so it made me a very successful commander, and I was in the top 5% of lieutenants, you know?
See, I want to touch on that because really what that tells me and what it's really, where that's coming from is more of a courageous state, because when people feel like they know it all, or they want someone to feel like they know it all, that's coming from a fearful state, right? That's fear.
It truly
But
is.
when you're coming from that open state saying, listen, this is the deal. I don't know this, right? There's a lot I need to learn. So when you come from that courageous state, you can only do one thing. You can only move up. You can only
That's
grow,
true.
right? Because you become like a sponge,
Yeah,
right?
you do.
You're
You do.
taking it in, and you're willing to
Yeah.
say, I don't know this. You know, it's funny. You ever hear, you always hear about how people say, especially women say, men, if we're lost, they don't want to ask for directions, right? They feel like they can do
That's
it.
really true.
I am the complete opposite.
I am too.
I just want to get to the destination. If you know a better way, just show me.
There
You
you
know,
go.
because I
Yeah.
just want to get to the destination. I don't care about if I can get you there or not, right? Let's
That's
just
called
get there.
lessons learned, man.
Man, that's just like, man, put it all on the side. Let's just get
Yeah.
there. So now you're. How long did you do over there?
Well, I was eventually reassigned to become the military police station commander in Munich, Germany,
Okay.
which was really a prestigious, at the time,
Okay.
a prestigious assignment. And I'm not saying that in ego.
No, it is what it is, right?
They reassigned me there. And that's where I started having my first medical challenge. When I got there, just a couple weeks later after I took over the military police station, and by the way, I was supposed to be up all the time because dignitaries were always coming in.
Right,
And
you
senior
were on
people, because Munich is just the threshold of Bavaria, Germany, you know.
Yeah.
And that's where the Armed Forces Recreation Center was, or is. And I started feeling bad. I got dizzy all the time. My head was spinning. I lightheaded all the time. I started losing weight, drinking. I would drink a gallon of water and urinate it, drink another gallon and urinate it. And
Just
I didn't know what
you
was
felt
wrong.
weak.
Yeah, and I was weak all the time. And in 2 weeks, I lost 20 pounds. Now, I was skinny at the time. I know, you can see. I grew a little bit since then. But I was thinking, is that off?
No, we're on.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I was
we're
like,
on. Because I have it on here as well.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So after my wife and I talked about it and said, you know, I need to get in and see a doctor.
See what's going on.
Well, on November 7th, 1974, I'll never forget the day, man. They came back and said, you have type 1 diabetes and you're going to have to take insulin for the rest of your life. And it scared me to death. I didn't even know what diabetes was. I had heard the word a few times. Now here I am, a college graduate,
Yeah.
supposed to know all this stuff.
Doesn't-
I
yeah.
had no clue.
Right.
I was scared to death. They put me in the hospital with 4 other brand new diabetics. And it was really a fear moment in my life. And it changed my life a lot because I always had a good attitude.
Right.
I was learning discipline, learning to be really disciplined. I always had a good sense of humor in my life. And it all just went right down the
So
tubes
what
for a
happened?
while.
So let's talk. What
Okay.
happened? Yeah.
Well, when I was in the hospital, my wife really helped me a lot because she went and found out what diabetes was.
Okay.
And the doctors tried to tell me, and I didn't understand it.
Right.
I mean, diabetes, nice name and all
Yeah.
that, you know, I didn't
But
really
what does it
understand.
really mean?
Yeah, then they started telling me what I had to do the rest of my life. Take insulin shots, in my case, you know. Test my blood sugar. And at the time, they didn't even have real testers like they do today.
Mhm.
I have one over here. I can get it and show you if you want. But you had to test by going into the bathroom and urine test.
Okay.
And
And then they'd read it.
I'd read it.
Oh.
Yeah, and decide whether if I needed more insulin
Oh,
or
really?
something. Yeah, so it was a real problem. Today, I just prick my finger.
Yeah.
You know, I even have done it on camera before. Prick
Yeah.
my finger, and they read my blood sugar just
Yeah.
in 5
Just
seconds.
like that. Yeah.
But back then, they didn't have that, and that made it hard. The other things that happened at that time, one, my attitude went into the toilet. Now I was a good officer. They thought I was a good officer. They wouldn't assign me there,
Right.
and it was being noticed by my commanders. The change in my attitude.
Yeah.
Um,
You were. more of that victim mentality. Why me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's only human.
But that's part of life. And,
It's
know,
human.
For diabetics that are listening today, it's really important to come out of that hole.
Yeah.
Because that changes your life, and it really does.
Yeah.
But at the time, though, I was a little bit nervous about whether I would even live for a while longer. After a while, they convinced me that I would.
That you're gonna be all right, right?
That was gonna be okay. But so I had a bad attitude, and then I decided, why am I doing this? Because I really liked the military at the time.
Okay.
It was really good to me, and I can even tell you more about that later. But it was good to me, and I liked it. I was doing well in the military, but all of a sudden I had this attitude change.
Yeah.
And I decided I would do 4 or 5 things to help me get away from that. So I started thinking, why are you doing this? And then, when you start changing your mind about things and learning,
It opens up.
Yeah, the door opens for you.
It kind of like we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
You became an officer, but in your mind you thought, man, I don't really know this.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I'm going to stay open to the people that are going to give me this information.
Yeah.
So then you had to figure out how to get back there.
Yeah.
Would that be?
That's exactly
How
right.
do I get back there?
Well, one of the things was I had to stop being negative,
Yes.
because every other word was, I have diabetes.
Yeah. The victim.
I'm feeling bad.
Yeah.
The
victim, right?
Yeah, poor me. And I learned that's not the way to live.
No. Victim, I always say victims never win.
No, they don't.
They never win.
Victims don't. So I used these 3 or 4 things I thought of. I really used them in my life.
Yeah.
And I worked hard at it.
Okay.
And I changed my attitude, and it's been good ever since for the last 41 years of diabetes.
Wow.
It's been good.
So how did that happen?
Well, I was really consistent in my approach to it. I know a lot of people. I've traveled all over the world. I've been very blessed in my life.
Okay.
I think you probably know that. But I meet a lot of people that have a terrible attitude, and it's really discouraging to me to see that, because they don't have to.
Yeah.
And it's all.
It's a
Most of the time, it's why me. I came down with type 2 diabetes. I don't know why. I've never had a problem. And I help people like that in my coaching today, because I've been through it in big ways.
You lived it.
I've been the
You
negative.
lived it,
I've been the positive.
Right.
And I've seen a lot, and I've traveled the world and looked at people all over the world.
Right.
So, in the military, I changed the way I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And they could have gotten rid of me at any time.
Yeah.
They ended up sending me to graduate school
Okay.
to get a master's degree in criminal justice. Now, I have a bachelor's degree in music and a master's degree in criminal justice.
Yeah.
And I only used it in the military, They gave me a year to do it. But after that, they made me a general staff officer
Okay.
at Headquarters Forces Command. They liked me.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have even stayed in the military. They bored people.
Now that was after that paradigm shift, that mindset shift, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And I left Munich, Germany in
Right.
1975,
Right.
and I went to graduate school. They sent me there, and I was shocked beyond belief. I thought they were just going to let me go.
Yeah.
But they
But
didn't.
you did make that change.
Yeah.
Was it just willpower? Was it a decision? What was tied to that? Because, for lasting change, I always say there needs to be a why that's big enough.
There is.
Okay.
I had to get away from the fear of it, and that's a big issue. The fear of diabetes.
Oh, this
Yeah.
was your way
Yeah.
of beating it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In your mind.
In my mind, because
Okay.
I knew the rest of my life would be negative.
And see, that makes a lot of sense, because prior to that, you were always positive.
Yeah,
right?
I was actually.
I mean, for the most part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So then you figured out, and I'm just kind of throwing things out here, but probably because you were so positive, that's in your DNA, that's your savior, right? That's pretty interesting. I like that.
But I got rid of the fear.
Yeah.
And it did change my attitude.
Okay.
But along with that, it changed my sense of humor, because I lost it for a while. And that came back.
Once you started that down that road.
Yeah, and there were a whole bunch of variables in there that helped me a great deal. And I realized not everybody's going to get a good attitude in life. We're going to have it.
Yeah.
Some people refuse, and it's really hard, unless they really try.
Yeah.
And I think once you have a bad attitude in life, you have to really work at it. And if you have a good friend that has a good attitude, and you go and talk to them all the time, oh, this is wrong, and that's wrong, and this is terrible, I went into a coma, and they come back to you and say, yeah, me too, I've gone this, that's no good.
Right.
But a good friend that encourages you makes
Yeah.
a great difference in your life. helps you get rid of the fear.
And what I believe is the quickest way to turn that funk around, turn that bad day, turn that bad week, turn that bad year around, is to really create an attitude of gratitude. You know, what are you grateful for? Because there's so many people that have it so much worse, you know, than...
Michael J. Fox, great example.
Oh, man.
Hey, Michael J. Fox, a young actor, funny as all get out. All of a sudden, multiple sclerosis diagnosis.
Just
you know what he
changes
decided? He said, I'm going to keep working and keep dealing with it no matter what happens. And he married Tyler Moore's another one.
Yeah.
Type 1 diabetes all her life.
Yeah.
And she keeps a smile on her face.
Yeah.
And does the things that she needs to do with diabetes, but also in life.
Yes.
To live a successful life.
With that balance, right? That's that
huge.
balance. So now let's go a little bit further. So now you're out of the military.
Out of the military.
So now what? Where does Chuck go now?
San Francisco. I went to San Francisco, and I tried to find a job and couldn't. And the irony of this is,
how did you get up there? How did you find your way up there?
My wife's family was from that area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, and so I thought it'd be a good place to go and try and get a job. I figured, I didn't get a job, but the irony of that is, every interview I had was interesting because they always said to me, "You have too much experience." I had really traveled a lot. I had done a lot of things in the military, and
so
I learned a lot. I had a master's degree. Yeah, they said they all said it except the life insurance industry, and I didn't want to go into the life insurance. The life insurance industry, but. You know what? I decided, heck with it. I'm going to take the test and see if I pass and go in the life insurance industry.
All right.
And I did that. And it took me about a year to learn enough to make any money.
Yeah.
They were paying me a subsidy, for a while.
just to get by.
And then I started doing better. And it took me really 15 years of that to become an expert.
Yes.
I'm an expert in life insurance. I'm an expert in helping people.
But it's interesting how it's so... After the fact, it's so easy to see that overnight success until you really pull back the curtain for everybody. Yeah. There is no overnight success.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
When you look back.
You're totally right.
Yeah. You just, a lot of times we only see the end result and you think, man, he's doing really well, she's doing really well, but that grind, that's 15 years is a long time.
It is a long time. And I was not successful until that. I mean, I made probably $20,000, $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I was starving.
Yeah.
And I hear those stories too, Dave.
So what made you stick with it?
Well, I'm persistent.
Okay.
And I thought, I don't really want to go into another kind of business because I've learned this one.
Yeah.
After 3 or 4 years, you learn enough.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what else to do. I really didn't. And of course now my life's changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
But
So I would imagine too, one of the reasons you probably stayed in it was because you are a people person. And in order to survive and thrive selling life insurance, you better, if you're not a people person, now you gotta move, right? Now you gotta.
That's really true. And I realize there are a lot of different kinds of people in the world.
Oh.
Some of my hardest clients were engineers.
Yeah.
And they would calculate everything and come up with wrong numbers. And I'd have to say, well, that's not the way mortality is calculated. Oh, mortality, I didn't think about that. And I had to deal with all kinds of people, and it helped me fill myself.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Because it kind of, I share this in my workshops about the color personality test and how you can identify somebody's a good, pretty quickly, a broad personality, right, in the colors. But I share this story because I had a fire restoration business back east, and so we'd be at different houses, and we worked, we build the insurance company. So someone has fire or smoke damage. There was one day that we had a deal with State Farm, so they'd call us out, when someone had a fire or smoke damage, we'd evaluate and see how we can help them. One day, 10 o'clock in the morning, it was like a Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm in, if you're from Wilmington, Delaware, you know Camden, New Jersey.
I sure do.
Okay, so I spent 17 years in Camden, yeah.
And you're still alive.
I know, I ducked a lot. I ducked a lot.
I love it.
It's almost like that Mr. Magoo, everything behind me is falling down, I just keep going.
That's true though.
Oh man, it's a tough city. So there I am in North Camden, 7th and State Street, as rough as you can get, and I'm talking to the insured's son, who runs one of the biggest gangs in that area, right? And it's Spanish, so we're going back and forth. Literally, 4 hours later, there I am in Villanova at an estate talking to a man that this is his third house and he's ready to jump on his plane to go down to Boca Raton to his other place, and I got to talk to him about his, so talk about
that's called diversity of life.
Polar opposite, right?
Wow,
Yeah. So and you're just like, wow. And I said to my business partner, I go, Bobby, is this unbelievable? And he goes, this is really unbelievable.
That's really a cool story.
Yeah, but it's so right, and that's the only way you're going to be able to really survive and thrive in businesses that we're in when you have to deal with people.
Yeah, you have to get along with people in life. One of the biggest problems I've seen with people is they hide after they get diagnosed with a medical challenge.
Okay.
Dave, you're really healthy. Tomorrow morning, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, we didn't know this until today, but you're a type 1 diabetic and going to have to take insulin for the rest of your life. Or you have melanoma cancer. We ran the biopsy.
Yeah.
You know, and which I have had, by the way.
Okay.
That's another one.
Okay.
I have a whole list. I can give you this.
You have a laundry list?
Yeah, it is. But you know, that scares you.
Yes.
And somebody. Now this all depends on the personality and
Yes.
you call it the DNA of the people.
Yes.
You know, some go into a hole and never come out, and some older people especially, they rat hole themselves in their apartment or their home, and somebody invites them out and they
give
go.
up.
Yeah, they give up. So you know that's a real thing, and I think that's a great point because people have to deal with life.
And I also believe, Chuck, besides the DNA, I also believe in a lot of it has to do with your outlook, no question about it, your perspective, right? And your DNA, but also how much work you're doing on yourself. See, personal development, I believe, is just like physical development. You can't go to the gym once a month and expect to get results, right? You can't go to the gym once a week and expect to get results. It's got to be a lifestyle change, and that's the same thing with personal development. Because like you were talking about the diabetes or whatever, I get a phone call tomorrow and say, hey, we read your blood work and here's where you're at, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, what changed my life was 15, 17 years ago, I had a near fatal motorcycle accident out in Vermont, right? Ran right into a boulder and the whole bit, broke everything on this side, punctured a lung. And I could have been either paralyzed or dead, right? And what that helped me get through was so similar, is I was scared to sell my first business. I had a public adjusting firm and I wanted to sell, but I was so afraid, what else can I do? This is what I know, right? And so we took a weekend up in Vermont. That happened, and it made me realize, Chuck, that tomorrow's not guaranteed, right? We get one bite of the apple here. So if that's what you really wanted to, and within that year, I wound up selling the firm and then moved on to the fire restoration. And from that point on, once I was able to, like your first jump, once I was able to get through that fear barrier, right? After that, I built and sold 3 companies in 3 different industries because I was okay. You know, in between the years, I was all right. I call the fear barrier the bully, right? You could say what you want, but there's only one way to stop a bully. You have to step up. And if you step up, you're either going to get knocked down or you're going to win. You're going to move forward. Either way, you're winning, right? Because you met that bully head on. And that's how I define a fear barrier, is a bully, right? Because if you let a bully back into safety, what happens? Your self-image goes down. You beat yourself up. But if you face that bully head on, that fear barrier, man.
There's an example I have from the gym, by the way. I go to the gym every day.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people, because I go at the same time as you.
Yeah, so you know.
There was a guy named Ernie, good friend, good guy. He weighed 470 pounds. It was so fat. It was just, it was sad. It was really sad.
Yeah,
and it wasn't a funny thing.
No.
And we all go in the back at the end of the thing and sit in the sauna or somewhere, you know. A bunch of us do, and we used to talk. And this guy Ernie, I be this also, but he was a discouraged guy, and we talked him into going on a diet.
Okay.
Here's talking about discipline again, but this is really important. After he started this diet, he got used to it, and he lost 120 pounds in about 6 months, 8 months maybe. He really worked at it. One day he came into the gym and he said, "I can't do this anymore. I love eating too much. Here's what he started doing. His wife would feed him the food that he was supposed to eat, and he'd say, I'm going out for a walk. He'd go right down to, oh, thank heaven for 7-Eleven.
Wow.
He'd go right down to 7-Eleven, buy hot dogs or hamburgers,
Yeah.
and start filling himself up.
Yeah.
So he gained all the weight back.
Oh,
And
man.
here's what happened, though. And this is just one of many stories I tell people because of reality.
Yeah.
He called me one night and he said, Chuck, my blood sugar is 450. Now, normal is 80 to 120
it's just off
or
the
thereabouts.
charts.
Yeah. And he said, what do I do? He said, I called my doctor. He hasn't called me back. I told him to get to an emergency room.
Yeah.
Because with his weight, still, he was 300 some
Yeah.
pounds, maybe 400
Yeah.
pounds. With his weight
That's it.
and the heart having a problem,
Yeah.
because of that, it was really devastating. So I told him, get down to the hospital emergency room and get somebody to get the insulin in.
Yeah.
His doctor called right after he hung up and put him on another product called metformin.
Okay.
All that does is just keep you regulated on a
Okay.
smooth base.
Right.
But the insulin would have brought his blood sugar down. Long-term diabetes, the arteries tend to close.
Mhm.
And that creates, especially with a lot of excess weight, it creates a situation where you can have massive heart attacks.
Yeah, just
Well, that night, he died.
oh, wow.
And there was a story that I tell this story a lot because it's really a major deal. Here's a guy who disciplined himself for a year and quit.
Right.
He quit. And discipline is important for your lifetime, not for that. The only reason I'm still alive, Dave, with all the
Yeah.
major medical challenges
Yeah.
I've had, is because I've disciplined myself to do the things I need to do
Right.
to stay reasonably healthy.
Right, because your why was big enough, and also I noticed something. And I'm going to touch on this because I used to do I used to own a sports nutrition store in Vista and personal trainer and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So one of the things I used to tell people, and you refer to it this way with him, which makes a lot of sense, is you said he went on a diet. And I call that the 4-letter word, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
That's why you're able to stay with it. For me, right? People say, how do you, I'll be 50 in September, and they're like, well, how do you keep going to the gym? And it's my therapy. It's actually more up here
Me too.
than it is anything. It's my therapy. I call it my iron therapy. I'm at the point now where there's times that I have so many balls in the air, right? In order to clear my head, what I'll do is I'm up at my alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I'm at the gym by 5:15,
Wow.
usually between 5:15 and 5:45, right? Train, come home, get my day started, get things going, email, afternoon,